You weren't put on this earth simply to live for yourself. God has a plan and a purpose, and he actually has what's called a life mission for your life. Only you can fulfill your life mission. If you don't fulfill it, you just missed the whole purpose of your life. There are three ways you can learn about something, like, for instance, your life mission. You can learn by explanation. You can learn by example. You can learn by experience. You don't have enough time in life to make all the mistakes yourself. It's wise to learn from experience, but it's wiser to learn from the experiences of others. Then you don't have to make those mistakes. You can learn from people who are more successful. You can also learn from failures and go, I don't want to do that. In the Bible, there's this little book called the book of Jonah. Jonah does almost everything wrong in his life mission. And what we're learning from this story are what not to do with your life. It's in there as a warning saying, don't do it this way. It'll save you a lot of heartache, save you a lot of pain, save you a lot of frustration. But you were made for a mission. We saw Jonah rebelling and running from God. He goes, God, I don't want to do your plan. I want to do my plan. I don't want to go with your mission for my life. I want to just kind of do what I want to do. We see Jonah repenting and running back to God. What to remember when things don't go your way? Because you figured out by now, most of life doesn't go your way. Everything in the world is broken because of sin. Economy's broken, the weather's broken, relationships are broken, your body's broken. Nothing works perfectly on this planet. And your plans don't work perfectly. A lot of times you make your plans and what happens is the exact opposite. We're going to look at what to remember when things don't go your way. Now you can run from God the rest of your life, but then what are you going to do? You're going to run into God. You can run from God the rest of your life, then you can't run anymore, and you just wasted your life. Anytime you make an allegiance to your nation greater than your allegiance to God, there's a word for that. It's called idolatry. And it breaks the first two of the 10 commandments where God says, you're not to have anything before me. I'm to be number one in your life. Resentment is the most worthless emotion in your life. Anytime you get resentful, you're going to hurt yourself more than you hurt the person you're resentful against. If I asked you to remember somebody who's hurt you, you could probably pretty quickly bring up somebody in your mind who's hurt you, and you've had resentment against them. You think by resenting them, you're holding them accountable. But actually, when you're resenting somebody, all you're doing is make yourself miserable. They're not even thinking about you while you're thinking about them all the time. There are people who hurt you a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago in your life. You're still holding on to that hurt. That's dumb. They can't hurt you anymore unless you hold on to the memory of it. That's called resentment. They're not even thinking about you while you're stewing and spewing and going, I hate the fact that they did that to me. And you're going over and over and your mind gets bigger and bigger. They're out there cooking a steak on the barbecue, making homemade ice cream and playing golf. They're not even thinking about you. Who's the miserable one? You. Resentment never helps. It always hurts. You gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. I don't want you, because I care about you, because I love you, I want your life to be happy. I want your life to be successful. You got to get this resentment stuff out of your life. No matter what people have done to you, they can't hurt you anymore unless you hold on to it through resentment. Now, while resentment is bad against anybody, the worst kind is when you have resentment against God. And you may have never even thought about this, but you have had times in your life, we all have, where we are resentful against God. God, why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why did you let that happen? And you get resentful against God. That causes all kinds of problems. Now, here are the two mistakes that Jonah made. I want you to write these down so you don't make them, okay, in your life. Number one is resenting God's plan when it doesn't fit my plan. That's what Jonah did. Resenting God's plan for my life when it doesn't fit my plan for my life. Have you ever done that? Of course you have. You got mad at God when you had a plan and your plan for graduation, for marriage, for that job, for whatever, didn't happen. Resentment is a deadly poison. It's like drinking arsenic and hoping it kills your opponent. It's like aiming a shotgun at yourself and pulling the trigger so you hit your enemy with a kick of the recoil. It's always going to hurt you more than it hurts anybody else. But resentment against God is especially bad. God's going, I want to forgive them. I want to warn them and hope they'll turn back to me. When God saw that the people of Nineveh had put a stop to their evil ways, and they really were a pretty wicked city. When Nineveh had put a stop to their evil ways, he had mercy on them, and he canceled the destruction he had threatened. When God warns you about something, if you don't change this, there are going to be problems, there are going to be discipline, there'll be punishment. Whenever God warns you, that's a good sign, because a warning means, I don't want to do it. I don't want to discipline you. I don't want to publish. I'm just warning you. When God warns you, if you walk off that cliff, you're going to fall. That's for your good, not for your bad. So a warning actually is God's grace. If God just wanted to punish you, he just punishes you. He doesn't warn you, he just does it. And so God says, I want you to go to Nineveh and warn them that if they don't straighten up, things are going to change. Well, that's a symptom that I want to forgive them. How do you know when you're resentful at God? You're going to find 5 emotions in your life. These are signs that subconsciously you are resenting God right now. Number 1 is frustration. Frustration in your life is a sign that you're resenting God. Now, this revival, when God said, I'm going to forgive them, it's good news for everybody except Jonah. When God says, I'm going to forgive the whole city, everybody's rejoicing except one guy, Jonah. Why? Because he's the guy who doesn't want them. He wants them to be destroyed. So he's frustrated. Second thing is anger. That word there in the Bible literally means he lost his temper. He's in a rage. He's livid. He is indignant that God did not destroy the people who had hurt him. Why didn't you destroy those people? And so he's not only frustrated, he's angry. Number 3, self-pity. When you have self-pity, often behind it will be resentment. It says he complained to the Lord. And he goes, oh, poor me. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm gonna go eat worms. And he has a pity party and he invites me, myself, and I. Have you ever done that? Had a pity party for yourself? Oftentimes there's resentment behind that. Frustration, anger, self-pity. Now in the next verse it says this. Now here are the 2 other things, depression and suicidal. Depression, it's better for me to die than live. That's severe depression. And suicidal, Lord, just kill me, okay? I don't want to live. My plans didn't work out, so I don't want to live. Just, take my life. Now, how rational is this? Okay, this is extreme resentment, okay? Now, it's not rational because think of all the things that God has done for you. This is what happened when hate fills your heart. Hate filling your heart will cause these emotions. Resentment filling your heart will cause these emotions. And actually, they actually come in order. Because it starts with frustration, because things aren't going the way you want them to go. Then it goes from frustration to anger. I'm ticked at God because things aren't going the way I want them to do. Then it goes from there to self-pity, and I start feeling, poor me, poor me. Then it moves from there to depression, and then it could move to, I may as well just die. It progresses. That's what happens when you hold hate in your heart. I am begging you, as your pastor, I am begging you, whoever you're holding hatred against, whoever you're holding hurt against, whoever you're holding resentment against, let it go. Let it go. Because if you hold it in your heart, hatred in your heart produces, and resentment in your heart produces frustration and anger, and self-pity and depression. When you hold anger, when you hold hatred, when you hold hurt, when you hold resentment in your heart, you're not hurting the other person. You're just hurting yourself. You gotta let it go. First is resenting God's plan when it doesn't fit my plan. I resent God because his plan doesn't fit my plan. The second resentment is resenting God's mercy and goodness to other people. When God is good to people I don't want him to be good to, then I get upset. When God is merciful and forgiving to people I don't want him to forgive, then I get upset. I know you're slow to get angry. I know that you're filled with unfailing love. I knew how easily you could cancel your plans for punishing these people. Now, okay, we want to be forgiven. We want God to show us grace. We want God to show us mercy. But that guy who hurt me, no, God, you get him. He deserves justice. Do I deserve justice? No, I deserve grace. I deserve mercy. Who do you want God to not forgive? Who do you want God to not forgive? Please don't forgive them, God. They hurt me too much. Who has hurt you so much that you don't want God to show them mercy? Who is it that hurt you so much you don't want God to show mercy? Who are you unwilling to forgive that God's already forgiven? God's already forgiven them, but you won't because you think you're better than God. You are only hurting yourself. You're not hurting them. Holding on to that resentment, holding on to that hatred, holding on to that hurt is not hurting them. All it's doing is making you miserable. Who are you unwilling to forgive that God has forgiven? If you forgive others the wrongs they've done to you, your Father in heaven will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, then your Father will not forgive the wrongs you have done. When you refuse to forgive, you're burning the bridge you have to walk across to get to heaven. If you're unwilling to forgive others, God says, why should I forgive you? If you're unwilling to show grace to others, why should I show grace to you? You want everybody else to have justice, but you want to have mercy. You need to learn to forgive everybody who's ever hurt you for 3 reasons. Past, present, and future. Now listen very closely. 3 reasons you need to let it go, no matter how badly. Do they deserve it? Of course not, but you don't either. Forgiveness is never deserved. Forgiveness is never earned. Forgiveness is just a gift. You don't forgive them because they deserve it. You forgive them because you want to feel better. You do it for your sake. You let them off the hook for 3 reasons. First, I have been forgiven a lot in the past, so I need to forgive other people. Second, holding on to the hurt right now just makes me miserable. I end up thinking about people I don't want to think about. And I'm going to, in the future, need more forgiveness in the future because I'm certainly not going to be perfect from here on out. So I need to let it go for all 3 reasons. Past, I've been forgiven. Second, I don't want to be miserable now. And third, I'm going to need more forgiveness in the future. Friend, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. Not because they deserve it. You didn't deserve the forgiveness God's given you. You let it go because holding on to it hurts you. God can see things I can't. I just have to remind myself when things aren't going my way that God can see things that I can't. Anytime you doubt God's wisdom, you're going to get in trouble. Because God is God and you're not. And when I have my plan and all of a sudden God has his plan and God's plan is different than my plan and I start to get upset about it, I just need to remember God can see stuff I can't see. God can see the past and the present and the future all at the same time because he's not limited by time. We're on a planet that circles 24 hours, around the sun and rotates. But we have if you weren't on this planet, your concept of time would be very different. God is timeless. He can see the past, present, and the future all together. He can see what you can't see. So you need to trust his wisdom. Where were you when God made the world? Are you God? Do you see things he doesn't see? Do you know more than he knows? Do you think your plan is better than his plan? Where were you when I made the world, God says? I just need to remember, when things don't go the way I planned, God is God and I'm not. And I just need to trust him, and I need to trust his wisdom. I need to trust that he can see things that I can't see. On the screen, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11 says this: God does everything just right and on time. So he always does the right thing, and he always does it at the right time. God's never late. We might think he's late, but God's never late. God does everything just right and on time. But people can never completely understand what he's doing and see the whole scope of his work from beginning to end. We don't see what God sees. I don't have the brain capacity to see from beginning to end and see all of history, and you don't either. And so the first thing I have to do is remember that God can see things I can't see. So God's saying, don't doubt me. Don't doubt me when you're going through tough times. I know what's going on. I can see where it's headed. I know the ending. I know the end of the story. I've read the last chapter. So he said, don't doubt me. Remember that God can see things I can't.